Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Hahn, and this is the 29th episode of Guided Self Healing slash Fearless Living. And this episode we'll call Improving Our Understanding of Relationships and Having Better Relationships. So we'll call it Deepening Our Understanding and Improving Relationships and resolving misunderstandings based in drives. And the point here is this is the third in our series of how we can understand how others make meaning and the consequences for our relationships when we don't just assume that the way we make meaning is the way anybody else makes meaning, because it is not. And if we can really understand these differences, we can talk about the different ways we make meaning and the different ways we pay attention and our different motivations, and then untold misunderstandings get resolved and relationships improve. And that really is the whole point of everything. And it's not just relationships, but we're going to focus on relationships because that's what we're at. So in this episode, what we're going to talk about is our deepest drives and how people with different deepest drives can really get into difficulty because they fundamentally misunderstand other people's actions and what motivates them. So again, we have to start with what are these drives? And they're really the three, from my point of view, core drives around survival. So we need to preserve, right? We need to connect, and we need to belong. And if we think about our ancestors, that makes a lot of sense. If you don't preserve, if you don't have food and shelter, you're going to die, right? If you can't connect, both in an erotic sense with a partner and in a very alive sense with, between an infant and their parents, you're not going to survive. And if you don't belong and have a clan and have a tribe, you're not going to survive. So these three drives, the drives to preserve, the drives to connect, and the drives to belong, which in the Enneagram are called self-preserving, sexual, and social. And I think, there's a lot of misunderstanding here because there are instinctual drives, which are instinctual, really, it's like, those are sort of biological instincts to preserve, to sexual drive to procreate, and the social drive to be part of a community. But really, if we also think about this idea of, there's also an energetic to it, because if you're going to preserve, you have to incorporate something, right? You have to take in food, you have to bring yourself into shelter, you have to do these things. So it's an incorporative energy. So you take something in, or you protect yourself, and then you can go out into the world. Of course, if you want to, erotically connect, which means a kind of intensity from my point of view, what that means is that you're going to look for somebody or anything really you're going to connect with, and you're going to connect intensely, and the rest of the world is going to go away. So there's an intensity about this kind of connection, and certainly sexual subtype people tend to have more sex because they look to that, because one way to connect very deeply is through sexuality, although clearly you can be very sexual without connecting, and you can be very connected without sexuality, but there tends to be an overlap nonetheless to a kind of eroticism, and then there is care, from my point of view, in the sense of belonging. And the differences of the energies are, one sort of incorporates, it goes backwards and in, one goes forward and out, which is the sexual energy, and one goes what I would call up and diffuse, and that's the social energy, because and the differences of those energies and the consequences of them are really remarkable, and it just leads to profound misunderstandings. Because if we were just going to take relationships and love relationships even, which is at least makes it easy. These different ways of loving get trampled on by the two other types. So you will get trampled on. Let me tell you what I mean. Let's think about this simply. If I am a social type, right, where I would say the energy goes diffuse, right? It's like it is incorporating everything, right? It's like I'm part of my clan. Well, let's think about this for a second. What am I going to do? I am going to want to be part of a clan. The way I'm going to tell you I love you is I'm going to invite you into my community and into community uh, mores, into community activities. This is my way of saying I love you. I bring you into my community. It's if I propose to you, it's going to be the kind of proposal that I I'm having pictures taken by all of our friends, and I do it in the ballpark in front of 50,000 people or whatever, because it's a communal experience. I'm part of a community. I want to belong, and I'm going to show you I love you by incorporating you into that community, right? And it is a communal experience. It's our experience in the context of something that is belonging to a tribe. Of course, if I'm a sexual subtype, the way I want to connect with you is one on one, and I want to like laser in on a kind of intense connection. And as far as I am concerned, everything else becomes secondary. Being part of a group would be, would dissipate the energy. Even eating, unless you're going to eat in a kind of erotic way. I mean, if just eating for eating's sake, it's like, who cares? I'm like in connection with you. We don't need to eat. And, there's going to be an intensity about it. Or it's like what most people are like when they fall in love, except if you're a sexual subtype, theoretically it never ends. Whereas if you're social or self-preserving, it ends pretty quickly, and that leads to a lot of confusion because most people, when they fall in love, because we're stacked and most of us have all of these things when we fall in love, at least for a short period of time, for a few weeks at least, we look all like sexual subtypes, right? But then, of course, that goes away. Now, let's think about it if I'm a self-preserving type. What am I going to do? It's like the way I'm going to tell you I love you is I'm going to make you a dinner, or I'm going to make you a beautiful home, or I'm going to do all of these things. And I'm going to tell you about them because this is really saying I love you because I've made a home for us that is so homey, or I've made you a wonderful dinner, or I've done some kind of service for you, right? Because this is my way of saying I love you. And of course, it's really awful when you're one of these types and somebody else of another type really has a problem with it. And the other two subtypes will have a problem because they won't know that you're saying I love you, right? So let's say we start with as a sexual type, right? And I'm with a social type. Let's start there. The problems are inconceivable. I'm going to like say, the way I love you is I want to have time alone with you, right? And groups, if I'm a really sexual subtype and I'm self-preserving second and I'm social third, groups are actually problematic for me. So if I'm a sexual subtype, not only will and I'm social as a third because they get stacked, I will, want to say like, get me away from groups. Now, let's suppose that I'm in relationship with someone who's social and they're going to say, oh, let's go to our family party where all these people will be. And this is my way of incorporating you and saying, I love you. And the sexual subtype is going to say, you don't love me. You just want to like get away from me. And the social subtype will say, no, I love you. I want to involve you in my family. And they will like fight and fight and fight. And then, the sexual subtype will say, all right, now, that I've gotten angry about the family thing, now we can like, kiss and make up, so to speak. And the social type is going to say, you just trashed my loving of you. Why would I want to be near you? So like, the problems here, and it's because they don't understand. They don't understand that, this thing that they hate is really their partner saying, I love you. And it's profoundly sad because they can't make the translation, you know. And if they can make the translation, then of course everything gets better. If they say, "Oh, I know that you love me by saying that I want to have you come to this big party with a family," even though thinks I'm crazy, because I'm social last. Like, well, then someone says, "Oh my God, you really get it." And then, of course, when you come back home and they say, now it's time, the sexual subtype says the social subtype, now it's time to gaze into each other's eyes. Social subtype, if there's any sexual there for a little while, says, well, I can stand this, as long as it's not too long, too intense. So, people of different subtypes, it's like spiritual relationships because you really have to learn another love language, right? So, sexual and social. And the same thing is going to be if we go around the circle. Let's say now we're going to go sexual and self-preserving, right? Well, the sexual subtype will want to have this intense connection. The self-preserving type, and if I'm going to cook for you, it's going to be so I can connect with you. I'm not saying I love you by cooking for you. It's like saying, because I want to connect with you, one way to do it is through cooking. But believe me, it's not because I want to make the meal intrinsically. It's because I think if I make a good enough meal, that will mean that we'll be gazing into each other's eyes. Well, if I'm self-preserving, no, I'm going to be cooking for you because I'm cooking for you and I've thrown all my love into my cooking. And you better like the cooking, so to speak, as opposed to saying, well, this is just a way for us to get more connected, at which point you know you don't really appreciate it or acknowledge it because it's just food and who cares about food, at which point, of course, this self-preserving type may throw the food at you and you'd say, why are you doing that? Did you want to just really have a loving evening? And I said, if I did have a loving evening, I made you dinner. And like I made you the most special, I really slaved in the kitchen saying I love you. And now you're saying like let's skip dinner and go to the bedroom. I don't think so. Because of course, different types, so to speak, metaphorically, live in different rooms. And self-preserving types basically live in, the kitchen. And social types live in the living room and sexual types live in the bedroom. And, if you're really extreme, you just don't get it because, of course, the social type will be wanting to do. So, the self-preserving type will want to do self-preserving activities in bed, like read together and share something about that, but not because I want to share it with you. It's because I'm taking this information and I want to share the information. It's not that I want to share it with you. It's that I'm loving you by sharing the information with you. And, sexual subtype in bed will be saying, well, if you want to share it, you're sharing it with me. It just so happens to be that you're sharing information. And of course, so the sexual subtype person with the self-preserving type will be saying, oh, I just love that you're sharing the information with me. And the self-preserving type might be saying, no, I want you to listen to the information I'm sharing with you and not make goo-goo eyes at me. And then if you really could take that in, maybe you could make a little Google eyes at me or something. It's just like it's stunning. And then there's all this misunderstanding, and they end up turning their backs on each other, right? And so if that's sexual and self-preserving, if it's sexual and social, sort of the exact opposite problem, which we began to allude to, which is like, from a sexual subtype, I want you all to myself. If we're going to a party, we better make eye contact a lot across a crowded room, so to speak. Whereas the social subtype will say, no, we're going to go to the party and we're going to, each do our own thing. And then we'll come back together and we'll like talk about the interesting things that was like participating in the party. And so then, of course, and that's my way of saying I love you, at which point, they'll feel deeply hurt when the sexual subtype says, you dragged me to this effing party and now you want to just talk about all of the things you discovered at the party. I want you talking with me eye to eye. I don't want this sort of like hand in hand we go off into the party like participants in a party. And it's just remarkable, right? And so you can extrapolate the whole thing. And it really, social and self-preserving, it's like if the social says we're going to go to this party and we're going to go there, the self-preserving type is going to say, well, we have to bring a lot of good food and we have to do whatever. And the social type will say, well, maybe, but there'll be pizza at the party, so who cares, and we'll get it. And the self-preserving type will say, well, what am I going to do at this party? Because my contribution is that I can, bring great food, and that's what makes me feel like I've really contributed and I've shown my love, not by like, being part of the cocktail party. That doesn't feel very comfortable for me. So it is the misunderstandings of how I'm saying I love you that lead people to say, like, I can't stand him because he always wants to go to parties, or her if she's the social subject, because it doesn't matter. Social subtype woman says, I want to go to the parties all the time. You know, sexual subtype man says, like, I just want to like have intensity with you. It's not even I just want to have sex. I just want to have some kind of intense connection with you. Or a self-preserving man is going to like say, of course I love you. I like, look at how beautiful I've made the house that you've come into. And, the social woman that he's trying to get involved with, she'll say, well, yeah, that's nice, but like, why are we staying in the house anyway? Because we should be going out. And it just is just remarkable. And if you really, could step back and say, can we step into each other's shoes for a second? What would it be like, from a social, if I'm going to step into a social subtype shoes and say, for 1 second, I can just be with, of course, I want to like have a big wedding and like, cut the cake in front of everybody and then we're all going to commingle because that's my way of saying I love you. Or, sexual subtype who says like, it's the romantic movies, and kissing into each other's eyes, but it's only 1/3 of the world that does that in an ongoing way, and like intensity of connection as opposed to this diffuse. And really, if you have, social and sexual together, it's this whole different kind of energetic because one is sort of like saying, we're part of a clan, we're part of a tribe. So we're going to be inclusive, and the other one saying we're going to be exclusive, we're going to build a wall around ourselves. And the social subtype would say that's just being rude. I mean, like, how can you go into a world and just build a wall around yourself? The sexual subtype will say, because what the heck's the point of having a relationship if you don't? And and if you could really begin to say, wait a second, I'm the social subtype or the sexual subtype, their way of saying I love you is that they're going to like claim me, or they want me to claim them, or whatever it's going to be, and we're going to have this intensity of relationship. And can I get there for short periods of time? Because that will be saying to this person, I will love you the way you know what love is, as opposed to the way that I'm comfortable loving. So this ends our 3-part series on, understanding others from the point of view of their personalities or their centers of perception or their drives and the energetics of these things. I hope you found these useful and at least food for thought. So you can begin to sit down with your partners or those in your lives and say, like, really, what are you saying when you're inviting me to a party? Or what are you saying when you're saying, like, let's just slow dance and gaze into each other's eyes? Or what are you saying when you say, I, really made the home beautiful and I made you a beautiful dinner? And you'll find that what it means to this person is not what it meant to you. But if you could really love them and say, oh, I realize you're saying I love you, just not in a language I know. I'm giving them the greatest gift of all, which is really the gift of understanding and stepping into their worlds, as opposed to saying you have to join them. So having said that, I wish you all well. Again, if you want to reach me, ahan at lifecenteredtherapy.com. Ahan. And we are lifecenteredtherapy.com. And please, we have finished our book, which you can pre-order on Amazon. It's coming out February 22nd. It's called The 1 Hour Miracle. And the fact that we finished it, which was not a 1 hour miracle, but it was a, as we say, it goes, you have this, idea, it's a 1 hour miracle, but getting, to the end of the journey is, as we say, a journey to remember, because it's like a long climb. Anyway, until we meet again, my dear friends.